I'm Aaron Sagers, and this is Talking Strange.
All right, from Mind, Body, Spirit, Matthew Merenda, Alex Henes, and Sarah J. Bartholomew, thank you for joining me today. So, diving right in, I'm curious about, well, actually, I want to know about each of your kind of horror origin story coming into this project. It seems like Alex and Matthew, I saw that you guys had worked on a lot of trailers that involved some in the horror genre, but just where are you coming at from with all of this? What was the stuff that you loved as kids, as big kids, all across the board? So let me start with Matthew, and then we'll work our way around.
Yeah, I think you know, we've always been big fans of the genre as storytellers. I think we both kind of got bit by the filmmaking bug early on in our lives and have been making our own little horror shorts ever since we were, 8, 9, 10 years old. And I think for me, it started when I was like 10 or 11 and I saw Halloween, which has always been my favorite horror film because it's scary, but it's also very simple and it feels very real and raw. And also, it was made for almost nothing. And so I think all of those things kind of coalesced into our inspiration for making our film as the genre sort of evolved over the years. And since then, there's been a lot of great horror films, and I think I'll let Alex speak to the more kind of recent inspirations for the film too. But it's always something we've wanted to play in, and it's also very friendly for lower budgets, so it allowed us to kind of get in there and tell a really unique and creative story.
And so you guys go back to childhood?
Spiritually, yes, not physically.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. We both went to the same college. Matt's a little bit older than me, but I think the older you get, the more you realize that in college you were still a child. Even though you didn't think about yourself that way at the time, you were almost definitely a child. As for me, my horror background, I don't think it ever really occurred to me when I was younger that I would be into horror. I was very deeply afraid of horror movies. One of my formative memories was begging my mom to go see Training Day for my birthday party, and she said no because it was rated R, and we went to go see The Ring instead because that was like kind of the only other option. And I got so scared that I left the theater, and my mom and dad and all of my friends stayed and watched the end of the movie, which I don't blame them. It's a great movie, but I think after that, I don't know if it ever really occurred to me that I would want to make horror, but I think it aligns a lot with, I don't know. I think my reaction to that screening really like stuck with me, and like that sort of visceral reaction to something and like eliciting that from the audience that kind of always stuck in my mind. So that was definitely my horror origin. And then, yeah, I met Matt out here. We worked for a company called Buddha Jones that specialized in horror movie trailers. And he and I had been talking about making movies with the owner of the company, and everything just sort of coalesced into this movie.
Yeah. And Sarah, for you as well, were you a fan of this genre, or was this just a script that, you enjoyed and went for?
Yeah, I horror is not something that I gravitate towards as a viewer because I'm like, I don't need more cortisol pumping through my veins or through my body. But I often get cast in horror, I think more so because of just the embodiment that it requires and just like the physical acting. And that also is why I'm drawn to it because I do get to use like my whole body as an actor for it. But yeah, like, and that just kind of naturally organically happened as I got into film. Crypt TV was like really big when I first started in film, the YouTube channel, and now it's like bigger than that. But I worked a lot on shorts for them and just kind of got to dip my toes into a lot of different physical expressions of horror and sci-fi. Yeah, and worked on some indie horror things, but Mind Body Spirit was definitely like, I don't know, a big bang in terms of, yeah, where I jumped into horror and everything.
Yeah, I kind of want to extend that thought a little bit because the physicality of it is so intense in this film, and obviously you are, you know, a performance artist, you're a dancer, you're like you do all of this already, but this as I'm watching it, I am in the world, I am immersed, but I was also thinking, man, this is a lot of work for this actor because you're on screen 90% of the time, and it's so demanding of a performance and a physically demanding performance. Was that indeed the case? And also, did you have any hesitations? I mean, it's great as an actor, it's all you, but it's all you. So was there any kind of concern about delving into this world?
Yeah. Yeah, I always say this project was like the most physically, emotionally, mentally, and like spiritually exhausting, but like also nourishing project that I've ever done. And all of those concerns, I was met beautifully by Matt and Alex. Like we talked in depth about those concerns leading up to it and like during it. And yes, it provides more challenges, it just being you, but then it also provides the space. I mean, especially when you have a team that will give you that to really hone into what you need to get through it. It allowed us to have more time in between things and the way that it was shot. So I was really given that like time and space to prep, to warm up and get into my body, to like, oh, okay, I messed that up, got to go back. And yeah, I mean, I also say that like my whole life was really training for this project because I did train in dance and yoga and embodiment and expressive arts like my whole life and musical theater. So without all of that, I don't think I would have known what to do and wouldn't have been able to communicate with Matt and Alex in the same way that I was able to. So yeah.
Yeah, Matt, you mentioned being a fan of Halloween and film that is, bringing the horror to the suburbs. And with Mind Body Spirit, there is this sense, even though we don't really see this surrounding area, there is this sense that this could be anyone's house, any grandmother's house in suburbia in a nice neighborhood somewhere. And I kind of wanted to, was that always the plan? Was that always to be like in this kind of nice area? And also, how did you guys land on the notion of like yoga and a yoga influencer?
I think as far as the location goes, like we had always intended it to be like riffing on what the backgrounds of all those sort of YouTube and social media yoga videos look like. It's like kind of idyllic in a bland way. There's like always like nice hardwood floors and big windows, and the lighting is very kind of bucolic and like idyllic. And I think we looked at a lot of places and originally had written it based a little bit around Alex's like apartment kind of, which is a big open kind of space at the time, but similar vibes. And we looked at some houses that were smaller and eventually settled on this one that we had shot a short in before, and it was bigger than we intended, but it ultimately ended up making the movie work better for exactly what you said. Like it kind of gives it this like, it's pretty, but it's kind of cavernous and it's unexplored. So that's kind of how we landed on that. But I'll let Alex talk about the influence actually, because he has a nice story about it.
Yeah, I mean, the yoga stuff came from that sort of deep pandemic boredom and a need to move my body. And I started really following this YouTube yoga influencer named Yoga with Adriene. She's kind of the queen of YouTube yoga. And I started following her practices like very religiously, to the point where it's like she kind of became my friend in a weird sort of warped pandemic brain kind of way. And then I eventually started to like turn on her a little bit. I was getting like a little sick of her. Like I started to notice all of her little quirks and this and that. And The psychosis of that, I think, ended up working its way into my brain. And in the meantime, I'd also sort of foisted her on a bunch of my friends who were similarly looking for inspiration or movement in their pandemic strapped down lives. And our friend Topher Hendricks actually sent me back a video and was like, yo, go to this timestamp and like look at this. So I went back and looked, and Adrian's doing her thing. She's like in a downward facing dog, but then the camera started to like move and like reset and like find a new frame. And it was very jarring because like I had been following her for like months, and I don't think it had ever really occurred to me that there was someone else in the room. And Topher was kind of just like, what is moving the camera? Like this feels like there's something supernatural going on. And so by the time we got out of the pandemic, we had already sort of been kicking around this idea of like a short film. And then we saw the movie Host, which really like kind of got our minds going about what we could do within like some severe sort of like pandemic-y limitations. And that just married really nicely with this yoga idea, and everything sort of came out from there.
Yeah, there's the horror, the supernatural horror elements of this, but also sort of the challenges of existing and finding your way in the 21st century, especially as a millennial, and navigating social media, which does seem like a demand, and then influencer media. What scares each of you more? Is it the existential dread of finding your way, or being a creator and an artist in a very shaky time, or is it the supernatural elements that are out there? Sarah, why don't you start? I mean, which of the fears kind of spoke to you the most?
Well, it's an interesting story, like the final callback, which I've voiced this before, but it's a great moment. The final callback was on Zoom. All of the audition was either self-tape or on Zoom. This was in the middle of the pandemic, but it was on Zoom, and the 45-minute countdown like starts happening at the 5-minute mark. And at like 7 seconds, Matt was like, so Sarah, tell us what your biggest fear is in life. And then the Zoom just crashed and just cut out. I was like, ah. And I still remember my answer. It was not living my life the way that I wanted to, like not leaning into the things that I wanted to lean into in my life, and not living authentically, whatever the heck that means, for myself, and living my life for other people rather than how I wanted to. And so I think that kind of goes into what, Anya was trying to find was like, what is her truth? What is she doing in this world and on this planet, and why is she doing it? And kind of getting lost there, obviously. So yeah, I think real life definitely scares me. Being on this planet scares me far more than the supernatural world. Maybe not elongated, like maybe the jump scares scare you more initially, but long term, I think real life.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would rather spend time in a haunted asylum or whatever, which as opposed to navigating the demands of this job and this life at times, so I got you on that. But
A haunted asylum, or the asylum in which they raised me.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Pretty equivalent.
Was as far as the backstory of the grandmother and sort of the familial connections, the ancestral connections, was any of that coming from a real or relatable place for either of you guys as writers and directors of this film?
Alex?
Yes.
I mean, I guess this is really a chance for you to throw your grandmother under the bus, I guess. Like, man, she was such a horrible Nona, and I was just waiting for my chance to talk shit about her.
No, I think, yeah. Well, yeah, this movie is just one big fuck you to my grandparents. No, I love my grandparents.
And there's the full quote. That's
Yeah.
the poster quote.
Shout out my grandparents. Fuck your grandma is
Fuck your
the
grandma.
quote of the movie.
Fuck
Like,
your grandma.
to be clear, that's the shirt printed. That's the bumper
T-shirts.
sticker. Yeah, no,
That was
I
our
think
production
a lot of
rallying
it-
cry.
Yeah. A lot of it was definitely informed by things that I was kind of going through at the time with my own family, and just sort of you know, kind of unpacking a lot of generational trauma, like in therapy, which I, you know, sort of infusing that into this was like very healing. But it also kind of like really enriched the story in a way. And you know, we get a lot of comparisons to Hereditary, which I think is like another really beautiful film about generational trauma, and it's a lot about how trauma can like kind of unravel a family and haunt people and sort of, you know, tear things apart. But I think what's really interesting about our movie is that we sort of take it a different approach, which is like the idea that the trauma and being told not to do things and things like that can sort of drive a person in a sort of spiteful way to kind of to go further and to, you know, dive deeper into themselves or try to escape whatever it is that, you know, has been passed on to them. And I think that like that aligned really nicely with this sort of millennial, like, I'm going to carve my own path. Fuck, you know, fuck everything that everyone's ever told me about like how I'm supposed to live my life. And yeah, they married in a really nice way.
Yeah, it's, as I'm thinking about it, in a way, like the plot of this, what unfolds is in some level more nefarious than Hereditary, because there is this manipulation and seduction of Anya by her grandmother who has passed on, and the this awareness of like the grandmother being like, oh yeah, my granddaughter is the weak link. I can use that. I can use that to my advantage and leave behind my own personal Necronomicon, you know? And knowing that she's searching for some sort of purpose, you know? I mean, that's a pretty nasty element of this.
I think that's part of the millennial horror. Is like, I think that's how some older generations see us, that we're malleable, that we're you know, we can be easily manipulated. You know, we were talking, I think, on another podcast about just like the fact that like Anya's name is in the book, and like that enough, I think sometimes like like we're so hungry for validation and like just anything that we can like cling on to that feels like a sense of self, that she's like, my name's in this, like I probably should read it, you know. It's like that comes from such a real place. I mean, I remember seeing my name like written in the front of like a math textbook and being like, oh cool, like yeah, this used to be my math textbook. And it's like,
Wait,
buddy, the bar could not be lower. Like, come on now.
dude, I know we just met, but you're a fucking nerd. No,
This
I
is
mean,
the Den of Geek, right? I feel like I'm in the right place.
it is. I guess I totally get that. I don't know that it's just a millennial thing. I just think every person as they're coming up wants to feel like, you know, they like me, they really like me, or that I have a purpose, or it's why those books that tell a story where it's one day on the way to the zoo, Alex found a magical coin, you know, putting your name into the fairy tale or whatever, how cool of a feeling that is. Um, and Sarah, with Anya, with your performance, she feels real. She is relatable in a lot of ways. She's likable, but also a bit annoying. She can be a bit much at times. And obviously needy, and craving affirmation. What were you kind of pulling from to get to that part, to get to that performance, but also keeping her from becoming too much, because we still, kind of as an audience need to be a little bit on her side, at least on this journey.
Oh no. I don't really know what kept her from being too much. I think that was kind of just I don't know that answer. That was probably Matt and Alex reeling me in all the time. I don't know.
What
And
you're
also,
seeing on screen is very much Sarah.
Exactly, Sarah.
Exactly, Sarah. Just riding that line beautifully.
It's more of a documentary than anything.
I think it's the fear of being too much is the reeling in of too much, because I mean she's also afraid of that, what was I pulling on? I don't know. I was in a really dark place. I don't know. I mean there was a lot that I related to, but then there was also a lot that I think Anya allowed me to expand on within myself that maybe I wasn't allowing myself to expand on in my normal life. Art, art imitates life, life imitates art. And truthfully, like as roles come into your life, you're like, okay, this is mirroring this part of me right now, and like, what can I use, or what do I need to bring in that I don't relate to? It's kind of always a web. But yeah, there's a lot on you and me during that time.
Well, and in a follow-up on that one, and then I want to hear from you guys on this as well. Like, with any story, obviously pacing is so incredibly important, and with horror, like we want to witness this descent into madness, or the supernatural becoming stronger and unfolding. How did you kind of lock on to what you viewed as the pacing on that descent? I'll ask first from a performance perspective. Was there anything like physically, as things are getting darker with her and with the supernatural forces of her grandmother around her, was there anything physically, Sarah, that you were just like slowly weaving in with Anya as things progress?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a big concern of mine in the beginning, was like her arc. And again, Matt and Alex, and I'll always say this too, and in every talk, like we sat down every night and had snack time and talked about like what was happening the next day and where was she in that arc. And like, yeah, that informed everything from my physicality to my voice of where she was at. And that again comes down to like somatically experiencing life, and then also just like my dance and physical performance training of just understanding my body. And I wouldn't have been able to tap into that without that. And then also during that time, yeah, I had just had this dark kind of sludgy cloud following me around in my own life that I just kind of pulled on and allowed to continue to like take over and then purge.
Yeah, well,
cathartically release.
that will be a great segue for my next question. But but I do want to hear from Matt and Alex on this. Just was there anything that as you're filming, you have a script you're pulling from, everything you'd already prepped for, but where you pull back a little bit because of the pacing, to preserve the pacing or speed anything up, so that way we're hitting the right notes at the right moments with this escalation of this supernatural threat? Matt, why don't you start on that?
Well, I think there's two different like kind of answers to that. One is in the writing, because I knew, like, Alex had mentioned Hosts, and that movie's only 50 minutes long, and we knew when we started we were going to be a little longer than that, but we wanted the runtime and the pacing to be quick. And so a lot of what we were doing was like, he'd write a scene, I'd write the next scene, so on and so forth. But we would keep going back and looking at it and being like, are we going too fast? Do we need like a moment of like you get the scene where she's laying in bed, just sort of watching Kenzie's video on her phone. Like that's where those sort of scenes came out of. to kind of give you like a little notch in between the like bigger scenes. And so a lot of it came from that. The second part would be when we had originally intended every scene to be like a full unbroken, like raw take. So everything was filmed in like a oneer basically. And the idea was that all this footage was just sort of like uploaded and someone put it in order and that was it. But when we watched that version, it was like an hour and 50 minutes. And it, you know, Sarah's amazing, but you're watching it and you're like, it's not getting to like the parts we want to get to quick enough. So we started, like Alex had this idea to kind of like start chopping it up like a vlog, and that raised questions of like, well, who's editing it? And we kind of said like, well, the spirit's editing it, Barash is editing it. But it gave us the ability to kind of be like, great, now that we feel freed from the confines of this being a bunch of unbroken scenes, how can we use it to both amplify the pacing and accentuate the moments that don't have cuts in them, to kind of amplify the dread. So it was kind of like a continuous process that evolved from writing all the way through post-production, where we were constantly like tweaking stuff to be like, does this feel like it's getting to what we want to get to when we want to get to it?
Anything you want to add to that, Alex?
No, I think Matt said that beautifully and succinctly. I think something that like we discovered is that we wanted the cuts to be there in a way that I think we're all sort of programmed by social media and watching YouTube videos. You know, it's like the whole thing is supposed to feel like it's taking place within this like sort of quasi YouTube playlist gone off the rails. And I think we really felt ourselves missing those cuts in like a biochemical sort of way. And I think having them there like really keeps people engaged, but then it's almost like we take the treats away and you're left to sort of sit and watch this unbroken scene, and your brain is like, what's going on? I don't like this. And even regardless of context or content, like your brain is like, this has been going on for too long. Where's the cut? And I think that just naturally kind of adds tension to some of these scenes where we really wanted to ratchet that up.
Yeah. Sarah, you mentioned dealing with like some dark goopy clouds and purging. So in the film there's some interesting body horror stuff. You literally do get to puke up some good stuff. Before I build to that question, I mean, how was the vomit? I feel like I think I saw on one of your social media posts something about hashtag gluten-free vomit. But tell me a little bit about your vomit. I feel like that's a story.
Tell you about my vomit. Yeah, the vomit.
The question, how was the vomit? One of the best questions we've gotten so far on this.
It's also good.
How was the vomit?
How was it? Also, sorry, my dog is deciding to be a menace right now. So,
okay. Mine's being chill right now, but at any moment she might, desire attention.
Yeah, so the vomit was in fact gluten-free. I'm a sensitive little bitch and need need my food I had way more food allergies at the time during this filming. My body was actually going through like a very intense autoimmune inflammatory response, so everything needed to be very specific. So the vomit was split pea soup, like charcoal and gluten-free oats. I think that was like a main concoction of it. That part of the movie makes me cackle every single time that we've watched it together. It's just the most comedic moment for me, because just remembering everything about it. Our makeup artist was behind me with a tube connected to my body with latex-free tape that we had to like search for. And it was a choreographed moment of just breathe, hack. And he was my vomit, truthfully, at the end of the day. I mean, I let it gurgle out of me, but Aldrich was the vomit, truthfully. So.
That's such a beautiful compliment to give to a person. You are my vomit.
You are my vomit.
You are my vomit.
Shout
Aldrich,
out Aldrich Chica, the vomit of Mind Body Spirit.
The
Yeah.
Vomit King.
the emoji next to his name in my phone is the vomit emoji.
And good, nice, practical effects homage to The Exorcist by using some split pea soup, I guess. Uh, is there how do you explain, I guess, from within the world logic, Anya's logic, she keeps pushing forward when her body is literally being punished by these so-called old world cleansings, which end up being obviously something much more nefarious. But why do you think she keeps doing it? Is it because she's so delusional? Is it that she really feels like she's locked on to something here? Is it that even as it's punishing, in the back of her head, she's like, this is going to be great content. People are going to watch this pain. And, people like that. People like some good vomit. I don't know. Like, Sarah, why don't you start with that? But guys, if you want to weigh in on that as well. Why do you think she keeps pushing forward?
I think that's a deeply layered question. I think that she doesn't really have anything else at that time in her life, and like she is so entrenched in that. And her claws have just not only have her claws, but like Arash's claws have also sunk in too, more than she even knows at that time, But yeah, I really don't think she has enough. Like, I think in another interview I talked about how I feel like Anya was this very like wholly spongy human of just like anything could pass through and like come through and hook in and like take her. And I think anything that she could find any purpose of, just that was more important than pain, also than too much pain, right? Also, like she had already tried to kill herself. Like, we know that, like, she had already been through some rock bottoms that, like, I feel like the pain that she was experiencing was just kind of like, yeah, but this is life. Like, isn't this just what we do to ourselves to figure out who we are? I think there also is a lot of that in the self-help space of like, Gary, you gotta like that no pain, no gain thing. Bro, hold on, sorry. Wanting to swallow nails, like, no, what are you doing?
Oh no, that's definitely not good
It
for
actually
dogs.
wasn't with the clicker, but he was right next to my drill. I'm like, I don't know what you're doing.
What do you have under your desk?
I just moved in, okay, man. I have nails and drills in places. Yeah, and then the part of the backstory was also mirrored to my own personal life, was that like she grew up as a dancer, and you don't really have a barometer for pain, specifically self-inflicted pain, growing up in the dance world and in the dance industry. It's kind of like that is your self-worth. Like, how much pain can you endure? You're gonna make it. Like, that means you will be chosen. That means we can trust you. That means you are like, we know that you will push yourself to all the limits, to the point of like breaking yourself, to the point of like being nothing anymore, so that they can just mold you into whatever you want. So Mind Body Spirit is actually just a mirror for the dance industry, I think.
Well, I do want Matthew and Alex, I want you to weigh in on that, but Sarah, how involved were you because you auditioned for this, but how involved were you in the scripting, and did the story evolve and change once you were on board?
I don't think the story changed that much from what I remember, but it was more just like, how did Anya get here? That was a collaborative experience of,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of what you're asking is like, the whys and the hows. And I think there's that one component of the social media kind of critique of like, people will do anything to like get the views, get the likes. And
Yeah.
it's coupled with kind of Anya's, psychosis and kind of her insecurities and all that kind of stuff too. It's like, she doesn't really know how to do it the way that Kenzie knows how to do it, but she still wants the same things. And it's very misguided. And yeah, like to Sarah's point, I think we talked a lot about the whys and making it, you know, even though a lot of it's not in the movie, like making that feel truthful to her performance and to the character.
Alex, there's this, I mean, you kind of spoke about your own family trauma and whatnot, and how much of this do you think is, you know, we're culturally craving meaning and craving like some sort of, you know, it feels like the world is falling apart, and uh things just don't seem like we have much order to any of it. So sometimes people do look to the past, but not all the old ways are good ways. Um, I guess like, yeah, I mean, how much of like are you saying perhaps just don't believe the good old days because they were never all that good?
Well, I think so much of, and I don't think this is uniquely millennial by any stretch, but I think that the movie's uniquely millennial in that it's sort of a millennial person kind of struggling with these very specifically like boomer kind of ideologies about like how things should be done. You know, there's a lot of like that sort of like intense focus from parent to child about what are you doing, is that going to make you successful, is that going to make you happy, so forth and so on. There's a right way to do things. And I think, you know, I think there are things that generationally that are passed down that will live on forever, like about, you know, about how to handle relationships and how to consider your self-worth and this and that. But then it's like, it's also like, you know, you got to start saving money for a house. And it's like, bitch, I am not gonna buy a house. Like, that is just not gonna fucking happen. Like, you absolutely tanked the economy. Like, this doesn't this shit doesn't exist anymore. Like, you could buy a house for like a Wendy's Frosty when you were my age, and now it's like completely out of my range. So it's like, I think you're sort of witnessing someone grappling with everything she's ever been told, and also kind of trying to hear her own truth. And I think what keeps her going is these little bits of validation and these like little like bits of power that Varasha allows her. You know, she's like, she has this moment where she thinks she floats, and she's like, I felt something, like there's something that's coming of this. And I think, you know, like, that's also super relatable. It's like, you go, you know, you have a neck problem, you go to the chiropractor, and it's like they crack your neck, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to the chiropractor every week now. You know, it's just like, this is working for me. Something's happening. And I think she just sort of kind of leans all the way in on that, because it feels like everything she's ever been told sort of coming to fruition and coming together.
Yeah, well, even
I
like
think
when we know it's like a bit of we've been sold a bill of goods that is not accurate about like the past and the future and all of that. There's still that desire. I think all of us still want like our elders or our parents or whatever to still have that bit of wisdom to cling to. So when she gets those little moments, it's like, oh, okay, maybe there really is something here, and maybe I've been doing it all wrong, so I'm gonna latch onto this. Like, um,
I think at its simplest, it's also like the mom and the grandmother relationship and their effect on a child of like the mom says no and the grandparent says yes, you can have the candy. And that's kind of its most basic like
yeah.
reward versus not system.
Just a couple more questions for you folks, but well, I did want to ask about just the actual book itself that Anya discovers. You know, I've been calling it sort of your Yoganomicon. But the was there more backstory to this thing and to the rituals and the magic and everything that each of you know about, but maybe didn't make it into the final movie. And then also just talk about the actual design of the prop and how much of this you built out that, again, maybe we didn't see all of it. So sort of the in-world story and then the physical prop. Can you guys give us more
It's
details on it?
actually the book is actually a copy of Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance.
Wow, no, I don't even think it's that. I don't think it's that evil.
That we set on fire, and then we repurposed for the movie. Yeah.
Oh god, it's scary because it's true.
No, that was so much of that book is due to our incredible production designer Preeti Sarawat. She filled that thing out front to back. I mean, there's all these things in that book that you don't even see in the movie, but like I think that was such a useful tool to hand to Sarah because it really felt like she could sort of play with it and go through it and find things and I don't know, there's just something really lived in and beautiful about it. It's like it's just one of those great horror props. And Yoga Namakan, that's it.
Great name.
Yeah.
Wait, is there, Matthew, then, was there more about the actual story in world that perhaps didn't make it to the final cut of the movie, but you guys were working off of this idea of like, here's where it came from, more of where it came from, more of the magic, more of the rituals?
Yeah, I mean, we had talked a lot of, I think some of it's in the movie, but we had talked a lot about like what Varasha's like story was. Like, what did she do? And like, did she travel around? She's obviously like traveled around to very kind of occult circles and like compiled this, all of her learnings and what she could do into this book. So we did a fair amount of research into a lot of like Slavic and Siberian kind of like witchcraft traditions and stuff. But we had like sort of a whole backstory written up for what Varasha did and why she got to this point. But beyond that, it just kind of like all then plays out for Anya to discover.
Yeah. Sarah, are you the person that if you find a book like this, or you're in the, staying in a hotel or Airbnb, or you bought a new house and you start hearing whispers or things walking around, are you the person to explore, or are you the person to nope the F out of there?
I get the fuck out. I don't trust anything or anyone anymore. Like, if this book has my name in it, I know what you're trying to do. Like, I fucking see through that bullshit. I'm
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
I'm out.
that's some good final girl energy. I like that. That's
I don't need to test my cortisol levels anymore.
are any of you guys the ones that are like, because there's the element too, like, curiosity killed the cat, right? But then they say satisfaction brought him back. But either of you two, the ones that are just like, I'm gonna peek a little bit more. I'm gonna go a little bit further in. I'm gonna see what's around the corner.
I'm the
Matthew,
first
Alex?
one to die in a horror movie for sure.
Why do you think that?
Because I have the arrogance to think that I'll make it longer, and so I'll do the one thing I shouldn't do, and then get murked.
You're the one that's gonna say, let's split up and explore this place.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into the attic, but I am going to open the book. I really do. I love like, what I really love is like when you go to an Airbnb and there's like the sign in, like the guest book or whatever. And there's stuff that's like very normal. And then it's like anything in this world, like Yelp reviews or like anything like that. There's like some that are just so fucking weird. And you're just like, oh, an insane person was in this house before me. Like, this is so cursed. This weird cryptic message and this otherwise normal little like guest book. And I never know that it's too fucked up till it's too late.
Yeah. I know, Sarah, you grew up in LA, but do you guys have any creepy? I'm always curious about like your people's personal urban legends or ghost stories or anything that they grew up with? Like, was there any creepy old house at the end of the block? Any urban legend that defined your childhood? Any personal experiences that you felt like kind of tiptoed up to the line of the unexplained and high strangeness? Anyone want to weigh in on anything like that? Sarah, it looks like you've got something percolating. No?
No, I don't know yet.
No, okay. Who's got one?
My house had a boiler room. It was like a really old house in Louisville, Kentucky. And it was like, it looked like it was set designed by the people who work on like the Conjuring movies. Like it was like we kept extra chairs for guests. So like we would have like Thanksgiving dinners and things like that, and we'd have to get the extra chairs out. And it was like, who's gonna go into the boiler room? And it was like it's like this like massive, dark, sooty, dingy space, and there was like full-length mirrors with like tarps over them, and like it was just like one of those things where you're just like our house was like very cheery, had like good energy. I mean, there's a lot of ghosts in it. It's an old house, but they were all friendly. But the boiler room was just like the most cursed place on earth. And I still, my friends now own my family home, and they just don't go in there. They just refuse to go in there. But yeah.
That sounds creepy. And in Louisville, you grew up, well, there's a lot of like supposedly haunted distilleries, but also Waverly Hills, the sanatorium is like right near there.
Oh yeah, I'm very aware. That was a big high school thing.
You poked around there like at night, did a little bit of trespassing.
Oh yeah. Not good. It's not good.
Oh, I've been there. I've been there many times. It's creepy.
Oh, it's bad. It's bad. It's like it's just as it's one of those things where, yeah, when you're a teenager, you feel fearless and you go and you're just like, no, that's as scary as it sounds.
How about you, Matthew?
I spent a lot of time camping when I was in Boy Scouts in the Pine Barrens in New Jersey, which of course has the Jersey Devil, but there's also like lots of other like weird superstitions, and like it's so vast, and you're wandering around at night with flashlights, and you're like, are these my friends like fucking with me, or is this a monster in the woods? Because I think as a kid you have like a really vast like appreciation for the unknown and like a fear of the unknown, and I think the older you get, that sort of fades away, but there's parts of it that still like have their hooks in you. So that's, I mean, for me it's kind of, that's more general, but it's kind of like the like East Coast old, worn down, abandoned, destroyed like sort of sense of history that has been overgrown now by nature is like has always kind of creeped me out, because it's like, what's buried there, what's haunting there. So
yeah, I mean, enough to scare characters in The Sopranos. Great episode, by the way, of The Sopranos, but and the X-Files. But yeah, okay, it's Pine Barrens. Okay, that's a good one. That's a really good one. All right. No pressure, Sarah, but so far we have Waverly and Louisville. We have the Pine Barrens. Anything that you grow, it could also be just sort of your own neighborhood kind of creepy urban legend, a guy with a hook for a hand, anything like that.
The urban legend where I grew up, I don't.
Sarah, I feel like you would have been a Manson girl if you were there at the right time. He playing the guitar.
I would have been looped right in, man.
You would have been looped right in.
I would have been looped. The thing, like, I grew up with two older brothers. Like, I feel like my house felt like a haunted house because I never knew when someone was gonna jump scare me or just like, tackle me. Like, I don't know. I hated going into haunted houses. I hated all of that because I was like, I have two brothers that terrify me all the time. I don't know. Yeah, there were creepy houses, but I think Not, yeah, I don't know. I grew up by the beach in a place that was like all houses were being knocked down and rebuilt growing up. So there wasn't really, I don't know. There's like one old dollhouse where you're just like, has anybody ever lived there ever? But I don't, yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
I had my own like ghost experiences that I think, but I still don't know. I don't know.
Well, care to share one of your favorite ones?
One time I, I don't know. One time I don't, yeah, I don't know. There was a house with somebody that I was very close with at the time, and he had said that the people who lived there before him actually moved out because they thought it was haunted. And like, so you would hear like drawers open at night and things like that. Whenever I was in the house alone, I would like hear things like scratching, but there's also a lot of critters. I don't know. But then there was one night where I was kind of, I don't know. Gary, what are you doing? Sorry. He's 7 months old, man. He's figuring it out.
Gary.
Yeah, and there was a fan on the ceiling that I felt like I kind of got hypnotized by, and this like spirit felt like it was talking to me and telling me things that I'm not allowed to share, and I still don't share them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I want to hear more about that. I won't press you, but I mean, you're talking to the right person about this kind of thing. So this
I
is
love that Sarah was like, I can't think of anything except for when the fan hypnotized me and told me secrets that I'm not allowed to tell anyone. Besides that, like nothing.
I will just, as an aside, like I was speaking to the showrunners of the cast and the showrunners of the CBS show Ghosts, right? And it's become a popular show, and it's a cute show. It's, but and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, boilerplate question. Any of you have any real ghost stories? And one of the showrunners is like, no, nothing, nothing. It's like, but there was this time I was living in Denver, and then I was being visited upon by, this girl every night that was telling me about how she was murdered, and then I moved out of that place, and later on I found out that there actually had been somebody murdered in that house, but no, nothing that had ever happened to me. I'm like, dude. But that is also just the natural reaction, and I think even plays into this world of like, when strange shit starts happening, some of us like want to place the order on the world and say, no, it's not that, or this is just the result of the cleansing working the way that it's supposed to work. I'm puking up this bile because that's it working. It's tingling because it's working, not like, oh, there's a friggin' demon or a ghost or someone hypnotizing me with a fan. So,
Ceiling fan. Ceiling fan. The house like that was built a long time ago. I don't know.
I love it. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed speaking with each of you, and do want more from this team and want people to be checking out Mind, Body, Spirit. So, guys, thank you so much for your time. This was fun, and hopefully we get a chance to talk again in the future.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.